Hello, welcome back to my podcast. In today's podcast, I'm going to talk about a couple of myths and misconceptions around yoga. And uske liye I've invited Komal, who is a yoga practitioner and an animal flow instructor. Welcome to my podcast, Komal.
Thank you so much for having me here, Varnit. I'm really excited. I've heard your podcast before, so I'm really excited to be here and talk to you. Thank you so much for having me.
And I'm glad that I found you across social media because मेरा yoga से मन उठता जा रहा था and I was like getting very extremely skeptical about this field कि is it like पूरा सब कुछ scam हो रहा है या fad है. So like how did you come across yoga या फिर like have you been doing this for long or like interest कैसे आया इसमें?
I wish there was this deeper story to my start of yoga practice. But honestly, so I've always played sport since I was very young. I used to run a lot and I used to play basketball. When I was in college, I came across this poster of a person teaching a workshop to learn a headstand. Okay, now inversions and all these cool looking things always fascinated me. So I was super excited by that. And I actually remember forcing my friends like from college to come with me. So I woke them up very early. I took them to this class and it was so great. So I didn't learn a headstand in that one class, but I felt like I've never felt before at the end of that class. Like I felt super energized. I actually felt really nice about myself and I got really curious. So that was my beginning of the yoga journey. So I just instantly decided that I want to learn this more. So I ended up joining that teacher and that was like my entry into the yoga world. And I wish there was like a deeper story to it, but that's about it. And since I got into yoga when I was, I think around 2015 end. So from 2015 till now, it's been a big journey.
Almost 7 years.
Yeah.
And have you been consistent about it? Like did you take an off or something?
Yeah, I didn't take an off, but I wasn't doing it continuously because as I told you, like I played a lot of other things. So asana practice was something I just did, like on the side and I went to learn. But turns out that over time, even though like I went through college and all of the other stuff, the practice still stayed constant with me. Like I learned under one teacher for all of that time. And it was something that even though I did take breaks for, because when I studied law, so I used to do my internships and stuff. So it wasn't always in the same city. So during that time, I would, taken off and not be with the teacher. But somehow or the other, I still practiced on my own. So it was not like continuously consistent, but it was pretty consistent.
Yeah. So like it's somewhat similar to what I did. Like I started lifting in 2014, but it was on and off due to some other commitment, colleges and like other kind of stuff. But like more or less I have been consistent with my lifting journey as well. And it makes sense. And when did you start teaching actually? I know you have been practicing yoga for a while, but when did you actually start teaching people?
I actually started teaching at the start of this pandemic. So it was around 2020 beginning, 19 beginning, or 19 end, something like that. So I actually had no plans of being a yoga instructor at all.
Okay.
This is something that it just happened, but now I've been teaching online for close to 2 years now.
Interesting. And like I said, like started off this podcast saying that कि मेरे को योगा से थोड़ा सा शक होने लगा था. I was not like enjoying what I was seeing because I was like I used to work in a gym. वहाँ पे they used to have yoga classes, but I wasn't satisfied कि how they were trying to promote yoga वहाँ पे. I know कि बोलेंगे flexibility increase होगा and all that होगा, आपका ये चीज़ ठीक हो जाएगा. And the guy who was teaching there was like very conservative mind की he was like एकदम obsessed with the old literatures and ancient text की योगा से ये चीज़ हो जाता है and योगा से ये चीज़ fix हो जाता है. But like I know कि वैसा that those things doesn't work that way. Like it doesn't cure like any major diseases like he was claiming that it would like fix those things. So that's why मेरा ये negative mindset बढ़ता चला गया, especially towards this field. But like after watching your work, how you teach people, how you not force people to do this or this particular thing and you just go with the flow. So like some faith was restored ki like there's someone who is doing this this properly. Like they are telling people ki right expectations kya hai is field ke around and what they can expect out of it as well. I know you also tell people ki kitne se kitne time mein what you can expect as well. I mean, I see your story, so I know that. But like, what do you think this causes कि ये पूरा negative yoga को लेके, like I know there is some like होता है, people hold themselves back when it comes to yoga for like अगर ultimate अगर health practice की बात की जाए.
That's a really nice question. It's also legit. Like I understand where your attitude towards yoga came in, but then my counter to that would be that this exists in every field, don't you think? Like if tomorrow, if I were to talk about even lifting and what all the things that I see about even nutrition and like weights and what it does for you, there's a lot of misinformation in any field, okay? And in fact, a lot of times the reels with a lot of nonsense get the most amount of engagement, or any posts with a lot of like nonsense get a lot of engagement. So you can't control that. But for you, you have continuously encountered people who, according to you, were only talking things which you didn't agree with. But similarly, like the way that I teach, it isn't an abstract, right? I learned from teachers who taught the way I do. So all of the way I teach is borrowed from what I've learned from. So luckily, I have been under guidance and teachers who've always believed in giving a fair logic to everything that we are doing. And there is a reason to everything that we are doing. So unless and until you know the reason and the logic behind things you're teaching, then why would you be teaching that? And that's a sort of attitude that I wasn't born with. I only learned from other yoga teachers. So like in any field, there are professionals who are competent and they have a certain standard and they have a certain professionalism and they know in depth about their subject. And then there are people who are just surface level and saying a lot of things with confidence. And usually, unfortunately, the loudest people are those who usually
Yeah.
don't know a lot, is what I have observed. So you can't, I don't think that, I think experiences can differ. But yeah, so that was like my counter to you having, a lot of, I understand where your perception comes from, but I mean, that exists in every field, according to me. Secondly, when it comes to the second part was what was the second question that you had in
Uh,
this?
why do people hold themselves back like when approaching yoga as something that they can do for a long time, like वो
Yeah,
सोचते हैं कि like flexibility के लिए है
yeah,
सिर्फ,
yeah,
and वो disease को
yeah.
ठीक करता है and all that kind of like जो misinformation spread होता है. So that was my second part to this.
Correct. So the second part, you're completely right. I actually wasn't aware of how much mystery is there surrounding the practice when I started posting on my social media. I've had actually a lot of people who told me that they've helped me. I've helped them demystify yoga, and that's something that actually I wasn't aware of, honestly, because I have had the privilege of always having really great teachers. So, but then when I came across and got exposed to more people who are publishing a lot of things online, then you're right. Like there is a reason that people hesitate. A lot of people don't, they talk in a lot of abstract terms, or they'll just make a big
Hmm.
statement like, if you do this, then this disease will get cured. And people like that because it's easy. Like whatever shortcut methods you will give to the public, they'll be like, oh, अगर मैं ये करूंगी और इससे मेरा डायबिटीज या थायराइड चले जाएगा तो मैं ये करूंगी. And that's easier than actually telling them a reality which they may see much challenging. So honestly, that's something that even I find very sad, to be honest. I hope that a lot of people, I don't think that I'm alone. I have a lot of people in my own network, newer yoga instructors who are doing similar things to me. So I have hope that this trend changes over time.
Yeah, makes sense. Like as long as someone is taking the right step in the right direction, I think we can hope for a better future. And I think things will change like down the line. I'm quite optimistic about things, and you're doing a great job in this anyway. So yeah, it makes sense. Also, do you think yoga in itself is sufficient like for a holistic lifestyle? Do you think we need to add something more, or do you think it will suffice if someone just does yoga like throughout the time consistently, maybe thrice a week, 4 times a week, even 6 days a week? I mean, it depends from person to person. Do you think it would be sufficient over a longer period of time, or do you think something can be changed?
For a person who doesn't do any sort of movement, and they want to start adding a little bit of physical activity, then I think asana practice would be your best bet, especially if you're, older, when you're in your 40s, 50s, and you want to start moving now at that point. Then there are a lot of great things that you can do because of asana practice. It covers a lot of, like a lot of people think asana practice is just stretching, but that's not it. There are a lot of joint mobilizations, very, very initial things that you can get absolute beginners to start with. But that also depends on your goal, I guess. For a person who didn't move at all, to add asana practice as a little bit of their workout, that would be sufficient for them. But then there are people who would obviously also require a little bit more. So I would always suggest that, um, before answering this question, I would also tell people before they begin their fitness journey, what exactly are you looking for? Okay. If your goal at this point is to reduce weight, then only asana practice would not be your best bet. The more efficient way to do it would be maybe weight training, adding a little bit of resistance training, and of course, taking care of your nutrition. If your goal is, so it depends on what you want to do, right? For me personally, I view asana practice, for me, sure, physical benefits are there, but for me, it's also like a work in and a workout. There's a really, it harmonizes your breath, body, and mind in a very beautiful way. So this is just something I do to feel still, but I also do a lot of other activities. So I would always suggest that it's better that you explore. Building muscle is great, lifting weights is great, um, adding a little bit of that in your routine would be good for you. But if you only want to do asana practice and you take care of your nutrition otherwise, and you're not an athlete or anything, you just want to be healthy, so I think yoga is pretty good for that.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And actually, I started doing yoga for the same reasons. I didn't take part in any kind of sports when I was in school. Mostly kids take up like basketball, football, cricket, and go out and play with friends. I didn't do any of that. I was mostly stuck at house playing computer games. But like, yeah, there used to be summer camps, and I always took part in those yoga sessions. They used to happen early in the morning at 6 a.m. That was the only bad thing about at that time. Like, I had to wake up at 6 and on a summer vacation, and it wasn't just but it was totally worth it when I once I went to the class and my teacher taught me ki you need to bend like this. Then I realized कि I'm way more flexible than my like जो colleagues जो आ रहे थे वहाँ पे, like kids basically, classmates or like other batchmates. So I was more flexible, merely comparatively. That was easier when he asked to like bend over and touch your feet, like just to see how much far we can bend down. But I remember the first day जब like he taught us, it was like half an hour का class only, not much, बहुत ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं किया था. Maybe that Surya Namaskar routine was there for 2-3 times to get us into the flow ki kya kya hota hai, and breathing techniques ki how to focus on your breath and all that. And but लेकिन जो भी stretching हुआ या ज़रा भी stretching हुआ तो I was sore for almost a week. Like it was crazy soreness. I mean, I have played sports थोड़ा थोड़ा before. I used to get sore, like नया कुछ खेलने पे जाओ तो you get sore, you start lifting weights, you get sore next day. But जब योगा किया था तो आई वॉज लाइक वे टू सोर. लाइक आई रिमेंबर माई फर्स्ट डे एट अ जिम, उसको भी अगर कंपेयर करूँगा योगा के फर्स्ट डे से, तो लाइक द अमाउंट ऑफ सोरनेस वॉज ऑन डिफरेंट लेवल्स. डिड यू एक्सपीरियंस द सेम और वॉज इट जस्ट मी?
No, there is definitely a possibility that you can be pretty sore just from an asana practice session. Yeah, like I do on days that I did push hard, especially initially, that I would be pretty sore. It's reduced now, but I guess that's just, but even now, like on days where I'm doing things which I've not done before, of course, I do feel pretty sore. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and your students, like especially the beginner ones, might feel extreme level of soreness. How do you tackle
Yeah.
those? How do you like? What do you suggest, or what do you tell them how to like? I mean, you have to have some willpower to push through that as well. But like, what's your general guideline around the same?
So more than anything, I'm very used to, whenever I start a new beginners batch, I can predict where in 3-4 days I start getting these messages like, my shoulders are hurting, or the back of the thighs, the hamstrings are getting sore, or the bum is feeling soreness. So I can like predict it. Like I know that these people are going to text me. I even know after which class I'm going to get more texts. So honestly, I just tell them that, it's just the initial adaptation phase. Okay, you have to just stay with it. I try to tell them that even though it's like sore right now, I do try and teach them the difference between being sore and being in pain, because I don't think that you should be in pain. If you're in pain, that means something else should be we should explore that more and investigate it. But I always tell them that soreness is just an adaptation phase of your body, and just stick with it. In fact, I give them an incentive. I tell them that if you come to class frequently, then eventually you will not feel sore. But if you take a break now and you restart the next week, you're just going to go through the soreness all over again. So do you want to do that, or do you just want to like go through it this week and then come in the next week and it'll be better? So I have been lucky enough to have students who listen to me, so they do come. But yeah, there is always going to be a little bit of discomfort whenever you start anything new. But then, as long as you keep showing up, you realize that your body adapts to it, and it's actually a really fun process to go through. I actually miss that beginner soreness a little bit sometimes.
Okay, so in order to get that back, I think you will have to stop doing yoga for like 2-3 months, and then
Yeah,
you might
that's true.
experience the same. That line which you said, that there should be a difference between pain and soreness, it took me a while to understand that in my respective field as well, because it's very common actually that people often confuse these two, that pain and the soreness, and they keep chasing sometimes that pain which shouldn't be like, which they shouldn't be chasing. Actually, they should avoid that. And yeah,
Exactly.
so ये this line is going to go as a header या कहीं पे tweet पे चला जाएगा, ये pain and soreness वाला line. This was interesting.
So important, because I think we just tend, especially if you're enthusiastic about doing something, initial level में enthusiasm भी होता है, तो like you just keep pushing, 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 but at what cost?
Yeah, like I was telling you आज ही text पे that what I do when I was practicing those headstands and handstands,
Yeah,
I was like driven कि मुझे पहले ट्राई में, पहले अटेम्प्ट में I have to achieve that. No matter कि मैं कितना गिर रहा हूँ, no matter कि मेरे को dizzy feel होने लगा once after falling and then I'm falling again and again, but it was like कि I had to do it. Like I have the strength, I have that core वाला जो थोड़ा stability as well, but I also know that ki I should have been patient. Like I know all of these things, but I was just being reckless about it. So yeah, it makes sense ki you need to take it a little slow. Also, like you teach people now, but I would also like to know ki where did you learn all of this from, or like what kind of resources do you refer to in case of any doubt, because it's like a forever learning process in every field. So you need to keep updating yourself, you need to keep learning. So what kind of resources do you refer to, or where do you learn all these movements or asanas from?
So what has helped is that before I started teaching, and even now I still consider myself a student. Like in before I started teaching, also I had a background where I was practicing for some time. And even now, even though I teach, I still learn under my own teacher. So that's not stopped. When it comes to where I learned from, so how I started learning under one teacher, if I can take her name here, her name is Natasha Noel. She's my first yoga teacher, and I learned with her for 3 years constantly. After 3 years, when I was in this transitionary period where I was like, should I continue what I was doing? And I didn't feel like it. There's a long story attached to that as well. But she was the one who started encouraging me to, because beyond her classes, I would also bother her a lot. Like I remember, like I used to stay back after class. I even practiced on my own, and I was super like I was super enthu. And that time I know that I know about this whole pain versus soreness thing, because I used to do this a lot when I was younger. I was very driven. I wanted to achieve a lot of these fancy postures and all. Although, like, my perspective has changed now over the years. But I used to, annoy her, ask her many questions. And she was really nice. I actually draw a lot of inspiration from her teaching style too. And I mean, she doesn't like it, but I consider her like my guru, because she pushed me and encouraged me to learn and get certified. So whenever she used to say that, I would be like, why should I get certified? I'm still learning. What would I do? And she's like, just go and learn more. So I did my TTC from a place in Mysore. It's called India Yoga. It's under the guidance of Bharat Shetty sir. They still run classes over there. And I did my first certification. My main reason I did over there was I just wanted to learn more about what I was doing. That's it. And I loved that course. It was a 1 month intensive. You have to live, eat, breathe in that shala. And there are a lot of rules that you have to follow and live a very, very simple yogic life. But I enjoyed myself. I learned a lot. And post the certification also, when I came back, during the certification is when I realized I really enjoy teaching, and it really makes me feel nice, and I'm not as bad as I thought I would have been, when I came back from there. Then the whole journey started. I started teaching my friends, etc., etc., and that's it. It's just been a constant since then. And then I also upgraded my certification, so I've gone back to Mysore and got more hours of training in. Apart from that, the resources I get is, of course, I have made it like I do learn from teachers constantly, so I have certain teachers that I still practice with. When it comes to learning about yoga philosophy, I'm always reading more and more about it. This year I'm deeply getting more into reading a lot of the scriptures, which give a lot of background about yoga in general, because asana practice is a very small part of yoga. It's a very, very big philosophy, and there's a lot more to learn from it. And when it comes to learning the movements, that comes from a lot of self practice, honestly. So when it comes to learning a sequence, or obviously because you've practiced for some time, you learn the sequences that you can teach a lot of people, right? But apart from that, it's just a lot of self practice. I One of my other hobbies is also I really love reading about anatomy. So I don't read any novels, so I go back to like textbooks from like 10th, 11th, 12th that we used to have, and I get into a lot of even research paper reading. So that's been fun. But when it comes to a lot of new movements and how you learn them, like for example a headstand or a pincha, that's something that of course I learn under the teachers that I do, but I also do a lot of my self practice, because without that you cannot know how to teach someone who doesn't know how to do it. So yeah, just your own self practice is your primary teacher. Apart from that, you should always get yourself under other teachers, so you know who to approach with your doubts and who to clarify things with. And there's just so much stuff online that you can access. But yeah, I hope this helps.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it got me thinking about how you're approaching towards things, and it makes the most sense. I mean, there's no other way around it as well. From what you said,
Yeah.
like there's like you have explored all the options and all the directions that you could have from that point of time. But yeah, it's helpful. I think you might get the best teacher award this year, especially when it comes to yoga or something, if there's something of that nature which
I don't think
happens.
there's any kind of God.
Okay, sure.
I think I'm very, there's people who are way more, I have so much more to learn.
Yeah.
I always think of myself as a very, very, like a beginner person, even as an instructor. And there are just so many more amazing, incredible teachers that are there. I'm just glad that I get to be called a yoga instructor in their company. So that's about it.
Yeah, I told you, right, ki I wasn't like interacting with a lot of people in this field, but I do occasionally. Some of my friends are like working as yoga coaches or yoga instructors. So I know this for a fact that you're a good listener, and that definitely adds up to what you do as a teacher as well. I mean, you have to listen to people first, you have to be a great listener, then only you will be able to solve and pinpoint their problems as well. But after my interaction with some of the yoga coaches, which made me think that this is a sketchy field. So those guys were listening, but they were not understanding. I mean, they weren't even opening up their mind to listen to what I have to say. I wasn't like forcing my ideologies on them ki yoga is bad, वैसा है कुछ ऐसा. I wasn't saying that at all. I was just asking them ki do you have any reasoning for what you are saying or what you are trying to tell me, what you are teaching people or making them understand. Could be anything about diseases या जो भी हो. But it was like they're living in some kind of bubble जिसमें वैसे के सबके सब एक साथ ही they are living in harmony. It was very weird, like ki, how can people do that? Like, how are they not opening up and learning new things? I mean, like, if you tell me ki this yoga करने से ये चीज़ होगा and इस चीज़ से you are bringing out that kind of evidence उसको backup करने के लिए, तो I'll accept that. Like, it's not like कि I'm rigid कि मैं तो देखूंगा ही नहीं योगा को कि क्या ही है, कुछ फ़ायदा हो भी रहा है तो तब भी मैं उसको dismiss करूँगा. Like, I won't do that. I will like at least give it a chance, see what it's about. But I noticed this is quite common, but हो सकता है कि मेरे ही सर्कल में ऐसा हो. I don't know कि if it's very common सबके साथ, but like from my experience जितना भी yoga instructor से I have interacted, more or less they were not open to learning. What's your take on this? Like, do you experience such kind of people as well? I know that you learn from the right places, right things, and you try to be correct or learn at least how to be correct most of the times, but like, do you come across such instances where you have to see that कि अपने ही like it's in every field, बॉडी बिल्डिंग हो गया, न्यूट्रिशन एक्सरसाइज, हर फील्ड में ऐसा होता ही है कुछ मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन वाला, आई नो, बट लाइक व्हाट अबाउट योगा? डू यू फील लाइक यू कैन रिलेट टू दिस व्हाट आई जस्ट सेड, और इज इट लाइक जस्ट मेरा थॉट है, मेरे साथ ही हुआ ऐसा?
No, I mean, I understand why you're saying it because you're not the first person who has said this to me, you know. I have it is actually a very big pet peeve of mine. Like, I dislike the way that a lot of this stuff is being marketed, and it puts a bad light on yoga, I guess, because there is so much more to asana practice, and it is actually based on a lot of logic and reasoning behind it. But when you sell it as some sort of a magic cure, or some sort of a wand which you do and things will eliminate or diseases will be eliminated, it actually does a big disservice to the practice, and it's annoying. But unfortunately, you can't control how everyone thinks. I also understand why such people are not open to learning. I guess when you only study one thing and your entire identity is formed because of what you've studied there, and then when someone is questioning you reject it because your ego is tied to that. You feel like you're defined by what you're saying, and if someone is questioning you about it, you take it very personally, like it offends you. Instead of, I think it's very tough for people in general to just pause and say, actually, you know what, I don't know why I said this exactly, let me think about it and get back to you. I think to say that, people think that it makes them sort of like a lesser person to acknowledge that they don't know much, and that's sad. And you're right, I wish that there were people who would who would pause and introspect and maybe examine their own source of the knowledge before making claims. But that's not the case a lot of times now. Plus, I think it's also easier that way, like when you make claims like this to get more views and likes, and that's what life is about, at least in the cities. And people who are, the world is very online now, so if you're an instructor marketing yourself to be visible, then, and if that's your main purpose, then I guess there comes a point where you will say anything just because also that this is what will get the most amount of likes. Unfortunately, also there are some people who actually believe what they are saying, but they can't give you reasons for it. Like they'll say, ये करेंगे तो ये ठीक हो जाएगा और ये फायदा होगा आपको, and they really actually believe it, but that's because of the lack of education that they've done for themselves and also that they've received till now. Okay, but yeah, what can we do? This is something, this is a reality that happens, so you're not wrong in feeling annoyed by that. That's something that annoys me as well, because I think it puts a bad light on the practice as a whole. It also maybe turns people like you off the practice because you're like, kuch bhi bol rahe, so that's sad, but it does exist. So I agree, I hope it changes over time.
Yeah, so now I know you, and you told your teacher's name, so I might just as well check them out as well. So like
Yeah, you definitely should.
more information is like better if it's correct. Like information का तो overload is everywhere, चाहे any field हो. Also, like I have been primarily working अपना like mostly I have been training general population clients, like they want to gain some muscle, yeah, lose some fat. I do have trained some athletes जो intermediate level पे, like they wanted to pursue bodybuilding as well. So उनके केस में होता है कि I have talked to them, like I don't disrespect them for saying that कि वो लाइक उनके में तो और ज़्यादा एक्सट्रीम लेवल पे योगा से वो हेट होता है कि जो होते हैं ना कि हाई एकदम दिमाग पे अपने हाई और माइटी समझते हैं खुद को कि लाइक बॉडी बिल्डिंग करता हूँ तो आई एम द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट या सबसे like intelligent superior being, I am the one. So I know a couple of them. I might have trained some of them, but like I am not the one to like teach them कि उनको ऐसा सोचना है वैसा सोचना है. Like my job isn't to do that. But like I remember those instances जहाँ पे this came up and it just didn't feel right कि like I मेरा भी थोड़ा था कि योगा से थोड़ा दूर रहना है, but I wasn't like dissing it completely कि इतना गंदा है, भागो यहाँ से, बंद करो योगा, ये क्या होता है. So I wasn't doing that either. But like हाँ, I know those cases. So like how do you deal with that, or like when they say कि ये especially the bodybuilding community या fraternity में I think सब factors intertwined है, connected है कि ये mindset ऐसा क्यों बनता जा रहा है. But like have you experienced इस तरह का कुछ कि where someone is looking down on yoga, especially from a bodybuilding community के perspective से?
Yeah, I see a lot of, I've seen a lot of call out. So the thing is, because if I followed only yoga instructors, maybe I wouldn't have seen these. But since I follow all types of fitness professionals, I have seen a lot of videos in which they are saying a lot of things about the practice. But you know how I think of it? A lot of times it also triggers me because they're saying a lot of things that are just blatantly wrong. But I always think of it before. Another thing yoga has taught me is that there is a difference between reaction and response. Okay. So, as I said, asana practice is a small part. Why I really enjoy and call myself, I am just an asana practice instructor, but I am a yoga practitioner, which is a Salvia student for life. So these are things which I've learned from the philosophy in general, which I try to live up to in my life. So there's a difference between reacting to such people and responding to such attacks on the practice or whatever. The thing is that what one person says about what the practice is doesn't matter because that's their opinion on it, right? It's not going to change what it means for me or what it means in general, right? So the thing is that I always make it in my head that they have this perspective about asana practice because of their experiences from it. Like even you had these experiences where you encountered certain teachers, you encountered certain friends who are yoga instructors, and they spoke in a way that you didn't align with. So this is why you went through these experiences. So this is the conclusion you derived out of it. But that's all it is, it's your opinion. And I don't think that there is a bad intention when these people are saying things about the practice. It's not a bad intention. I think it's just ignorance. Okay. Like if I try to engage with these people who are making these videos productively, I would ask them, have you taken a yoga class? If they tell me one, then I'm like, did you stop at one weight training session? There are many teachers that exist. Did you actually give it a fair chance, or did you just try it once or twice and think that it's not for you, and then now you're making a whole opinion on the whole practice? So I think, isn't that unfair? At least if I thought it would be worth it to engage with him, these are the questions that I would be asking them. But it's not my job to change some person who has a negative outlook towards the practice to change his opinion. It's my job to serve the people who are seeking to learn asana practice. They want to learn asana practice, they come to me and I'll tell them what I know. But if you have a certain opinion on your asana practice, that's your opinion. You can have that opinion. I don't care about it at all. And if my presence, and if you're following me on social media, and if that causes a little bit of difference in your opinion, that's great. Not my intention, but it's a great, nice, unintended consequence of my presence there. So yeah, that's my answer. I really don't care. They can think what they want.
All of this, what you said, made me think things on a philosophical level as well. Like most of the part I was thinking कि इसका philosophy ऐसा लग रहा है, इसमें इधर से वैसा tangent आ रहा है. But yeah, yeah, like it definitely makes sense. And you're talking about this, and you have framed it in a much better statement and words than I could ever have. मैं दिमाग में सोचता हूँ, but I find it hard to like make a sentence इस तरह से. It was a well formulated sentence, so yeah, I appreciate that. Also, I know that you don't get into controversies or any kind of like झगड़ा और ई लफड़ा जो भी होता रहता है इंटरनेट पे. So I know you don't even like that or enjoy that, but do you?
I enjoy it. I am a human. If something's happening, if there's a lot of, if people are talking about, it's gossip, right? So I will be aware of what's happening, but I'm like, ठीक है, whatever.
You won't engage. You won't engage जाके खुद से उसमें कि Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But
Hmm.
I do see, I know what's
Yeah,
happening.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
human. I'm not like, oh, I'm not going to see. Even I have fun. Okay.
But yeah, but I have like never seen you call out people, or like I know a lot of people call out people consistently, and that's a great way of marketing, to be honest. But I don't see
Yeah.
myself doing that. I have never seen you do that. Like, what's your ideology when it comes to calling out people, be it of any field? Let's talk about yoga only, or any field like you are like versed about, or know at least the basics about.
Actually, I that's not completely true. I used to, I didn't call them out or say anything like attacking them or anything, but I used to do this thing where I used to share posts which I don't agree with, and I used to write why, and my opinion would be not. I don't think I would not. I would still talk politely, but I was pretty aggressive, and like I was putting them out. It was a call out, and I would like take the post directly from there. I wouldn't. Sometimes I would tag them, but sometimes I would just tell people like, okay, this is a profile or whatever, and or put up a screenshot or directly their post. But I didn't really feel like that was productive. I think after some time, I just when I started thinking of it, like, why am I even doing this? Because is me doing it going to stop them? So instead of actually this realization also didn't come upon like my own self. I actually owe it to some followers who kind of also pointed it out, like, is it necessary to actually directly just talk about them? And at that point I was like, yeah, of course it is. They need to know they're wrong, but do they really need to? Or is it a way for me to feel like I am better than them because I'm more knowledgeable, because I can put this down? So that actually had put me in sort of like a annoying dilemma, because I didn't want to accept that maybe that was the reason I was doing it, but it was, and it wasn't the correct reason. So I do talk now about things which are not great, but instead of calling someone out, if I see a post which I don't agree with, I'll just say that this is something that happens and I don't agree with it, and I'll say why. So I think that would be more productive for people. The small chotu amount of followers I have, if I can spread awareness in a way that is not like negative or attracting controversy, I think that would be more productive and useful to people, rather than me just constantly like pointing fingers. But I think I'm still human, so if I see some post which is absolutely nonsense, so I think I would still end up doing that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like the occasional ones are like fine. Like, I mean, I was comparing it to the ones who do it almost on a everyday basis. Like,
And there are some people now, it's just become a thing. I
yeah,
think every day I'm seeing a debate me, debate me thing, and it's actually really funny on the point like that.
yeah,
But it's just a thing. It's a trend, I think.
yeah. You just said ki you didn't plan out to become a yoga instructor, and you just started and you have been doing it for quite some time
Yeah,
now. So how does it
yeah,
feel like working in this field like full time? I think you are doing it for full time, right? So how does
yeah.
it feel?
It feels really great. There are still days where I can't believe that I am doing what I'm doing. Um, Also at times it's when I made the decision. In fact, I didn't make the decision and accept to myself that this is all I'm doing till very recently, actually. Even though I was teaching for some time, it was always like I just thought that this is something I will do as an addition to the main thing that I will be doing. But I realized, I think just last year, end of last year, where I'm like, who am I kidding? Like, this is what keeps me going, and I love doing this. And it's also scary, because I don't think nobody in my family has done like, they've been very like this. The background is always like engineering, law, very very mainstream stuff, and like nobody's done their own thing, like having their own venture and stuff. So I didn't even have any maybe role models or examples to even follow. So it was very scary, especially because last year also, it's not like your income is always fixed, in this. And also, unlike maybe a job, when I went, like, you're paid monthly, you have that security that this is there, you have to show up, yeah, you have to perform, and there, and the expectations of your performance are also set by someone else. So then you have to realize that you're on your own, and you're your own boss, and sometimes you're stupid. So there's nowhere for you to go. You are accountable for everything, your absolute loss, your absolute wins. So it's a little scary sometimes, but I would not give this up for anything. Like I take this up and down roller coaster over anything I've ever done because it also keeps me going. Like I've never been this happy, and I've never felt like I was so in alignment with something that I really thought that I should be doing. So I am really happy. I love that I can do this.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's very relatable to me as well. Uh, like you can compare it statement by statement. I think we have a lot in common in some cases as well. I think I'm the
I think even I know that you also came in from a,
yeah,
like your
exactly.
family is mainstream.
Yeah, so like everyone like was more or less doing something which is traditionally what
Yeah,
people think is a great job or a great profile to be in, but this is something new. I might be the first one who has started doing some kind of unconventional thing, and I'm glad that I
yeah,
did. It was scary. It was definitely scary at first. I felt like am I doing it out of frustration,
yeah.
or I'm just trying to like lash out to the world or something. I used to think that kind of things as well, but along the as I started training more people, coaching more people, I understood that they are getting what they want, and I'm feeling glad about it. So
Yeah.
that just keeps me going. Like you said, this is something that you would like to do as well.
Yeah.
And like you have like made a name, अपना name you have created अभी तक इतने time में. So what would be your suggestion to people who are starting out in your field, like who are teaching yoga or practicing asanas? So what would be your suggestion to them, especially the
Um,
beginners?
like who are just, if you're
They're trying to
just going to
teach. They're
start,
trying to teach the people who are trying to teach.
got it. Okay, so the number one rule, which I see a lot of people slipping in, especially when they start teaching, it's also very easy to slip when it comes to this, is they sacrifice their self practice. Like, when you start teaching, it's very demanding, especially if you are teaching asanas. And if you're doing a 1 hour of class, there is nothing for you to do except you're there mentally and physically a lot of times, right? So the first thing that slips as a person who just starts taking classes is that you want to teach more, right? Of course, because you have that hunger, you want to earn more, you want to teach more, you want to teach more. And then you will start, allotting the morning hours also to your classes. And then slowly, slowly, you will see that it's been 2, 3 months where you've not done any practice on your own. And that has a direct impact on your teaching. So I would say the number one thing for you to do as a person who's just starting, because you don't have that many classes when you're starting out, you're still looking around, but you need to have a routine. So the number one thing you need to do is that you need to have a routine in which you prioritize your own practice. And then later, as your classes start expanding, don't let go of that routine. So that's, if you sort that out right from the beginning, then later you're not going to struggle with it. So that's number one thing. Number two is be prepared to suck. Like, I think a lot of times instructors who are new, they begin teaching and they feel so bad because their first two classes just went rubbish. Their cues were all over the place. They forgot the sequencing that they themselves had created. They got nervous. A person who came to their class had a body type which didn't allow them to do a lot of movements, and they weren't prepared with all of the variations they could offer them. And then they feel really bad about it, and then they take it too personally, and then they get a little shook up, and then they don't want to try again. But don't, and the thing is, it does not define you. Your first initial classes do not define you as a teacher. You are going to suck at it for some time till you become good, and that principle applies to anything that you do, right? So the thing is that a lot of teachers, when they are teaching for some time, I think we don't talk about the initial starting parts enough, but you need to realize that you're not alone in having bad classes. You will learn, and you will learn from the mistakes you make, and every class you teach, you'll become more confident. So instead of giving up, know that you're doing this because you love it. So keep showing up every day, and every day you will see yourself become better. So be prepared to suck, and everyone sucks in the beginning. That's all. So self practice, be prepared to suck. That's it. It'll be super fun.
And make sure that you don't suck 5 years later as well. So just like you have to keep
Yeah,
sucking on.
I mean, that won't happen. But that won't happen only if you're prepared to be a little bit
Yeah.
idhar udhar, in the start. It happens with everyone.
And it was like the best thing you said was कि you have to give time अपने practice पे भी. I got
Yeah,
complacent with my own like routine once I became a trainer in the gym.
yeah,
So I was like skipping my workouts because I wanted to train more people. I wanted to interact with more people. I just
exactly.
left my whole training. It was a big break. I didn't expect that कि मैं break ले लूंगा और अपना काम सब अपने
Exactly.
body का छोड़ के सब दूसरों को कर रहा हूँ.
I think जब when you started, you may have realized कि कितना energy जाता है just लोगों से बात करने में, वो भी एक energy expenditure है, and I think हमें वो idea नहीं होता जब हम चालू करते हैं, then you realize, okay man, that's why I was tired. So
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense. Everyone goes through that.
Yeah, but like yeah, we can only tell people कि ये चीज mistake मत
Yeah,
करना.
exactly.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
maybe take a fewer number of people in the initial कि at least you are like getting
No,
to
that I don't think that they should do. See, वैसे ही starting में initial
fewer
में
में
तो
कम ही मिलते हैं लोग. Yeah, exactly.
be honest, right? So I'm just saying that start establishing your routine then. तो जब actually expand होने लगेगी, वो ही don't let go of that habit, because I wish someone had told me that. And if they had told me that, then it would have been nice because I did lose my way in between when it comes to my practice. So that was not nice.
Yeah, and अभी तो like I was discussing थोड़ा सा positive side पे things, like अभी थोड़ा 180 degree turn लेता हूँ and I'll just ask you what scares you, like what are you scared of या afraid of. Like I'm not saying कि lizard से डर लगता है, वो वाला डर I'm not asking about. So yeah, like like you can talk on a philosophical level or maybe in your practice, like kind of there's always some kind of fear. I think even in my practice, like I fear if I am doing the proper service to my the client or the mentee who I am training. It's always been there, no matter how many years I've been training people. It's always there
Yeah.
somewhere in the back of my mind, if I'm doing justice to my role, if I'm like being the best they can get, or like इस
Yeah.
तरह का होता है. So that's what I was asking.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I think वो imposter syndrome
Yeah,
type
yeah,
of
yeah.
वो तो हमेशा रहता ही है. Like it's just I always think of it as this like this person, like this really annoying voice which is there in the head, and you just keep telling you shut up very, very, very frequently. Especially as a person who's like a freelance trainer of any sort. I think it's a constant friend of ours for the rest of our life. But what am I scared of? I actually, that's a really nice question to reflect on. I actually realized what I was scared of only last year. So last year when I got a major injury last year. It was just a overuse injury which built up over many years, and there was a big possibility of me losing the capacity to move the way that I do. So I didn't realize how attached I was to this, to the fact that I can do a lot of things. Like I can run, I can play, I can do my practice. And I did not realize how attached I was to it till there was a very big possibility right in front of me where someone was telling me that you shouldn't be doing this. And there was also the possibility where they're telling me that you should stop, teaching, you should rest, all of that was said. So I am scared of um, not being able to move the way I do, which is actually not a really healthy attachment to that level, like that capacity of working out. But I think if you've been an active person on any sort, I think this would always scare you because it's such a big part of our life. So last year was a big transformation for me, at least with respect to my mindset towards my body and my capacities, because the reality is that however active you are, you will age. And while you can do a lot of things when you're young, you want to be able to do the same things when you're older. But of course, the capacities will diminish a little bit, right? So if I hadn't gone through that last year, I wouldn't have known that I'm very scared of not being able to move the way that I do now. And I have been working on that sort of relationship and mindset in my head. But yeah, that is something that I'm scared of. Apart from, of course, the fact that maybe I always keep thinking one day nobody will want to learn from me, and then and then I don't know what I want to do. That's still always going to be there. But yeah, there's this movement wala fear, and also the fear that whether the choice I made to be a freelance person in this field is correct or no. But that's something that never will have any answer till a little time in the future, I guess.
Yeah. Now I have to think about my fears as well. I might have to update and refresh after what you said. So I'll think about it definitely.
Yeah.
And also for people who are listening and who I know some of the people who will listen to this podcast know you probably from social media. I make friends on social media, so they will be listening. And for those listeners who haven't been listening and might be listening to the first time, I wanted to tell that Komal ki favorite movie is Gehraiyan and her favorite song is Dube. Also,
That's such a lie. Please do not listen to that.
also her favorite scene from the movie was when that Zan guy came to that studio to get his back fixed. But so I
Please
think
don't listen. Please only and do not tag me in that Dubey song. I'm just so sick of it. That movie has ruined my life. Since it came out, I have people like my students sending me memes from it because there's a yoga instructor involved. First of all, that song is Dubey and my surname is Dubey. So you don't know how many people have tagged me on that song and you think they're the only person that they're tagging me on. Please do not listen to Varnit. That's such a horrible thing to do, Varnit. Why you
plus
doing
it would be a great idea, right? कि वो अपना बैक सही करवाने गया था, but he didn't maintain that consistency.
कर
फिर
क्या रहे थे यार उस scene में बट या इट रियली मेड मी लाफ अ लॉट इवन व्हेन वो पार्टी में गई थी एंड फिर उसे बोला कि शो अस समथिंग स्पेशल एंड शी इज गेटिंग इनटू लाइक आई डोंट नो सर्वांगासन या हालासन बट लाइक the other yoga teachers and I know we just died like we were laughing so hard like at least दिखाने तो like शीर्षासन या कुछ दिखाओ वो क्या होता है हमें तो समझ ही नहीं आता है like what was that I didn't understand but please don't listen to him I don't like that movie at all
okay, so
please
she's just being humble because she cried a lot when Zan fell off the boat. So I know that.
dude what a movie what a twist where she just murders this guy but
The only thing that came into my mind was उसका अगर back pain ठीक होता ना तो he wouldn't have fallen उस time. That's what I kept thinking the entire time उस point में.
dude but वो लड़ाई कितनी random थी like we were I remember just watching the movie like अच्छा मतलब ऐसा लवी डवी चल रहा है अच्छा टेंशन आ गया पैसे का वो पॉइजन कर रहा है like the next day it's not him getting a poison and then मर गया and I was like oh shit like that movie went from like 0 to 100
and the fun part was जो poison करने वाला उनका team वाला था वो आके उसी को डांट रहा है कि you killed him, no, you killed
yeah
him. So
yeah
what
but उसका
nonsense.
सही है वो he didn't have any sadness you saw he's like हाँ ठीक है मतलब वो मर गया तुम्हें मरना चाहिए I was like oh very like chill interaction this is but what a
But
movie
ठीक है, it's okay if it's your favorite movie, no hard feelings. But also another question, like how long do you plan to do that Friday ritual? Because a lot of people see that I have started posting as well, like you post and I reshare. But so people are getting curious and asking, what's that about? What's that? Like, what do you
Dude, there's
think?
no okay, look, I don't know how many people who are listening know about this. I think most would, right? There's a page on Instagram called Emo Boys of India. It's one of my favorite pages to scroll through because it makes me laugh a lot. But they started posting this video of a person who's vibing really hard and he's saying, it's Friday. And like सबको पता है वो video. I think if you're an Indian and you're listening and you're active on Instagram, you know what I'm talking about. Honestly, I didn't make it into a ritual. You made it into a ritual. So that's not true. I used to share it every Friday because I used to feel the same way. And मेरे को बहुत हंसी आती है whenever I see it. So every Friday I was sharing it. But I didn't realize that I was doing that, So you had told me on the messages. So I remember once I forgot
Yeah.
to share it on a Friday. And you were like, where's the Friday story? And I'm like,
Exactly.
what? And then you said that, okay, no, you put this every day, no? And I'm like, oh yeah. And then you made it a ritual. And
I was
now
getting
you
used
keep
to
me.
it. I was getting used to it. So I expect
Yeah,
you to
so
like
I was just saying, but the person because of who it became a ritual for is because of you. So the credit goes to you for sure.
yeah, definitely we'll carry on
And I
the
don't know how
tradition.
long I will keep going on till the video is floating on the internet. I will keep putting it up and you will keep reminding me.
Yeah, I think I'll just save that video as well. I haven't downloaded it. I need to save it and like make that backup अपने 5 devices पे. So I need to do
Good
that.
idea.
So
Good idea.
yeah. And one more thing, like before I wrap up the podcast, what would be those 3 things that you would suggest or advise people who are trying to learn yoga or try their hands on yoga, like because skepticism रहता है हर फील्ड में, इवन बॉडी बिल्डिंग का भी है, फीमेल्स थिंक कि आदमी बन जाएगा, वो सब अभी भी एग्जिस्ट करता है. सो व्हेन इट कम्स टू योगा, व्हाट वुड बी दोज 3 things that you would suggest people that they should be mindful about when they are trying to learn some asana or just getting to like explore yoga or just dip their feet in the water when it comes to this?
3 things.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one would be to invest in a good teacher. Okay. I think that there are so many things that are available for free on the internet, but if a teacher will help you to narrow down the practice and they will put you on a track, right? So you can actually progress with them systematically and actually learn a lot of basics of asana practice with a teacher. So also when I say invest in a teacher, just like anything, it may be that you don't like the first class you take with some teacher. So we live in a world right now that so many teachers are offering classes offline as well as online. So why don't you take advantage of that? Go through, if you're active on social media, go through someone's profile, see if you like their vibe, see if you like the way they talk, what they are talking about, the practice, what you're seeing on their feed, and if you like them, try a class with them. If you like it, great. If you don't, explore. Don't feel bad about trying to find someone who is at the same vibe with you, because that's very important. Every teacher has a different way of teaching, and you need to see the one which you feel most comfortable with, not the one who you think that you should be learning from. Okay, so there's a big difference in that. So invest in a teacher, and invest in a teacher who makes you feel comfortable. Okay. Number two, be very, very consistent. So if you want to start to learn your asana practice, you will not derive the same benefits you do in your asana practice if you're just doing it once a week versus you doing it thrice a week also. So I know that a lot of you, even I teach people who are working professionals, and they come to me either thrice or twice a week, but that is important. You need to practice. I also, in fact, in my own classes, I give them like homework. Okay, the homework is not mandatory, but I do give them like a set sequence of things that they should be doing. So people who don't do anything beyond asana practice, I try to incentivize them to come on their mat even when they are not learning with me. So be very consistent. If you're promising to yourself that you want to learn something new, why not give it a good shot and do it at least thrice a week? Twice or thrice a week is good. Third, when it comes to asana practice, because people are so online, they see many people do fancy things. Like I am also a part of that brigade where people and teachers put up their videos of doing very fancy postures like handstands, headstands, or splits. And you see that and you get enthusiastic and you want to try it on your own. See, as an instructor, unfortunate part is that even though advanced asanas are a very small part of your practice, but they are the ones which catch eyes. Okay. So I wish I could live in a world where I didn't have to put up my fancy posture pictures online, but we do. Okay. So I do indulge in that. But you have to understand that people putting up these pictures have put in years of work behind what they're doing, right? Because I know people who copy these things online and then they hurt their neck, they hurt their hips, they hurt their elbows. It's a very, very dangerous thing to do to yourself. So don't run behind fancy postures. The fancy postures will come when you start your practice. What matters is your basics. So don't copy things blindly that you see online, especially the advanced postures, because they can hurt you. But yeah, 3 things done.
Okay, so I'll summarize those 3 things. So basically, you can take Komal's help and learn yoga. So that's the summary, because
I'm just running my classes for any teacher you like. Okay.
Okay. And what if people want to find you and learn from you? What should they do?
They can just they can either DM me on Instagram, that's at Komal Dubey, or my Twitter, which is at Komal_42, or they can email me at yogawithkomal@gmail.com.
Okay, perfect. I'll add those links in my description as well on wherever this podcast will be hosted. And thank you for joining me in this podcast. It was a great time. I had a great time. I learned a lot, actually, to be honest. I was surprised that I wouldn't be thinking too hard during this whole process.
Wow,
But
I'm surprised at that.
yes,
Wow.
no. I wasn't like prepared. Like I would think too much philosophically about things yoga related. I was
Yeah, did I do too much chapad? Like I try to keep it short, but I'm glad. I'm really happy that you called me here. I loved having a conversation with you.
Yeah, but yeah, you gave me a lot of things to think about, like especially the that scare and the fear wala part is abhi bhi mere back of my head, it's running कि मेरा क्या अभी fear है इस time. So I didn't know कि वो मेरे पे भी आ जाएगा question उल्टा जब I'll be asking you. So those are the things that I was wondering. But yeah, thanks again for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.